All in Sports Network. We love sports.
The Kansas City Chiefs are in the midst of one of their worst seasons in recent memory, and it's causing some crazy situations to go down involving the Chiefs trying out a multitude of different players. We talk about that, plus a reunion incoming for the Honey Badger. We have all the latest details surrounding that rumor as well. Welcome into the Chiefs Report, everybody. I'm Jace Andrews here on the Rogue Sports Network. Happy you chose to either watch us on YouTube, listen to us on Apple Music or Spotify, or whatever way you are consuming our content. We really, really do appreciate it. But today we've got some interesting topics to discuss and go through. So, as you know, Kansas City not exactly in the spot they'd like to be. The one-score games have not gone their way, and for a majority of this season, it has looked bleak to make the playoffs, especially as we sit right now. And so, with all this to be known, Kansas City, who doesn't really hold tryouts in the middle of the year, they're a big tryout team, obviously, after the season to figure out their 90-man roster, have either done one of two things. The first one is that they tried out a bunch of different people to try and add to this roster, given the injuries that they have already sustained, or they're getting a sneak peek head start on the offseason and the potential free agents that they could sign in that light. And so let's first go to the names that we see who we're trying out today for Kansas City. Jesse Newell saying the Chiefs rarely have tried out players in the NFL transaction list during the season, and today they had a few. The group was made up of wide receivers, returners, and tacklers. There's a tackle, Zach Banner from Southern California. Out of North Carolina Central, there's a wide receiver, Joaquin Davis. Eric Azukama, the wide receiver out of Texas Tech, a guy who actually is very known to about a lot of people in Chiefs Kingdom just because of the Patrick Mahomes tie. Jaquan Jackson, the wide receiver from Tulsa, and then a bunch of tackles. A tackle, Nicholas Petit Fryer out of Ohio State. Out of East Carolina, it's Dante Smith. Out of San Diego State, Zachary Thomas, and out of North Dakota, it's Matt Watzik. We're going to go through these guys one by one, but the first initial thoughts on this and kind of looking at the tryout list and the people that the Chiefs brought in are reminding me of a couple of different things. The first is that Kansas City is starting to realize that this season is dwindling and that they may have to look more long term for their successes rather than short term. And so, while some of these guys will never be guys you'll hear about after today, some of them maybe makes the roster. One of the guys that I like, Eric Azukama, a guy who was a torment at at Texas Tech, a wide receiver there, and I do think he can actually make the practice squad. But besides the point, we're going to go through each and every single one of these on today's show, talk about what they bring, and really kind of a synopsis of why the Kansas City Chiefs chose to try out each of these guys. And so let's first start with the wide receivers. Why don't we go there right here, right away? As Eric Azukama, the most notable one for me just because of the ties to Texas Tech with Patrick Mahomes. Azukama, a 25-year-old wide receiver from Patrick Mahomes' alma mater. He was a fourth-round pick by the Miami Dolphins in the 2022 NFL Draft. He's 6'2", 210 pounds, and he has just one catch for 3 yards and 5 carries for 22 yards as he played in just 5 games in his NFL career. Azukama was a menace at Texas Tech, one of the better wide receivers in Big 12 for the 4 years he was there. But at the same time, his NFL career was expected to be more. And I think that's exactly why the Kansas City Chiefs jumped on this opportunity to try him out. And wide receivers for the Kansas City Chiefs it's been an interesting season. The injury, obviously, to a couple of these guys, the suspension of Rashee Rice, and ultimately just kind of the flow of not having the same wide receiver core out there until most recently. But in the most recent games, you lost against Denver and nothing really got going. Beat the Indianapolis Colts, which, I mean, that was great. The offense got going very late, and then lost against the Dallas Cowboys, who are known to have one of the worst secondaries in the NFL. So I'm not saying these wide receivers have any mantra to them or in a lot of ways should be signed or whatever you want to make of that. But either way, it is something to kind of note. Now, another guy that we're going to talk about here on the tryout list is wide receiver Jaquan Jackson. Now, he was a 6th-round pick by the Tennessee Titans back just a year ago in 2024. He's 25 years old, and really nothing much has come of his NFL career. He has more career fumbles than he has combined receptions and rushes. 5 fumbles and 4 receptions and 4 rushes, which I didn't even know was possible. I'm going to be honest. How do you fumble 5 times on 4 carries and catches? That's kind of wild. I'm not gonna. I really don't get it. Apparently, the one other he fumbled 5 times on a kickoff returns in a 6-game span for the Titans in 2024, which earned him a one-way ticket off the football team, is what this article talks about. But that's so wild. I mean, obviously, the answer is right in front of us. Of it was special teams fumbles, so it didn't count for receptions or carries. But have you ever heard of somebody who, yeah, you know what my stat is? I played in the NFL. What'd you do? I had more fumbles than receptions or carries. Line up, everybody. I'll get the autograph lineup. I'll autograph everybody. Like what? How is that even possible? But either way, he did try out for the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, I guess there's that. Another guy that we saw here is Joaquin Davis, an undrafted free agent out of North Carolina Central. He spent some time with the Chiefs' rival Denver Broncos. He's 6'4", 187 pounds. He ran a 4.36 40-yard dash. A lot of good athleticism in Davis, but nothing really has come of it in his minor NFL career. But he how do I put it this way? When you're vying for a spot in the NFL, even just on the practice squad, the best thing you can be is athletic. It's not about, oh, you can do this or you can do that. If you can be athletic, you're good. You'll get on a squad somewhere. And that's kind of why Joaquin Davis is a guy that the Chiefs tried out today, just because he's athletic. I mean, 6'4", 187 pounds, and a 4.36 40 at the combine, or for this 40-yard dash. Might have actually been at his pro day instead of the combine. I doubt he got invited to that. But either way, it is something to note, and it's something to be a little excited about. I know that the athleticism and all is always something that the Chiefs continue to try and represent and take. But a lot of these guys, if they were able to even make the roster, practice squad or not, they're going to be used on special teams first. They're going to be used in returning formations and on that situation first. And so that is something to kind of note when talking about them. Now, we did mention they also tried out 4 different tackles. Let's talk about them next. We'll first start with Zach Banner, who was a 4th-round draft pick out of USC. That was, again, back in Patrick Mahomes' draft class when he was drafted, but he has not played in the NFL since 2021. Now, he is 6'8", 335, but again, it is a tackle. He's a mountain. He had 30 games with the Steelers starting in 2. However, in his final 2 seasons, he kind of had some injuries that really kind of hurt him, including a season-ending ACL tear in 2020. And so, Banner, again, it's the mountain of the man. He's 6'8", 335. As I just mentioned with the wide receivers, same can somewhat be said for the offensive linemen, but in a different manner. I talk about athleticism with wide receivers, skill positions, and that. For your tackles, for your guys who are a little bit bigger, be as big as possible while also being as mobile as possible. And Zach Banner, for the injuries that he had, it's been 5 years now, nearly 6 years. Supposedly from the tryout, he is a little bit more mobile than what he was with Pittsburgh. But again, 6'8", 335. There's gonna be a lot to get that body moving. So I don't know kind of what that would go off of in a lot of ways. But either way, let's kind of continue on here as I do want to look at a couple of these other tackles because I do find them really, really interesting. We kind of go here and look at Dante Smith. Now, he is a former 4th-round pick by the Cincinnati Bengals in the 2020 draft. However, he just played in 3 NFL games starting over his 4-year NFL career. Now, he backed up Orlando Brown Jr. in Cincinnati, so overall, he didn't really do much, but he was released after he suffered a torn patella tendon. If that injury kind of sounds familiar, it's because Chiefs rookie Josh Simmons actually suffered that injury as well in college. So that is something to kind of note with in that light. But again, those are the tackles that I think can make the most sense, I guess, for the Kansas City Chiefs to sign. But there is 2 other guys that we do have to mention here, and that is Zachary Thomas, who is a 6th-round pick by the Bears, and Matt. I had this before I went live, but it's Walt Zecco. Waltz go. He's a 6'8", 308-pound lineman. He was a 5th-round draft pick by the Cowboys in 2022, and he appeared in 11 NFL games. However, a lot of his time spent in the NFL was in the 2024 preseason after he moved to guard. Definitely a better guard than tackle. As for Zachary Thomas, like I mentioned, he was a 6th-round pick from Chicago. He played at San Diego State, 6'5", 308. He spent time with a host of teams, Rams, Patriots, Texans, but never really hung on anywhere that has stuck. And overall, I do kind of look at him as not exactly the most fluid option for a multitude of different reasons. The first and foremost is that if you're 6'5", 305 pounds, and you were a 6th-round draft pick, but have spent time with now, 4 different teams, but including the, as I mentioned, drafted by the Bears, then Rams, Patriots, and Texans, and haven't stuck anywhere, that doesn't bode well in my mind for you, especially when Kansas City, I mean, I know they're looking for bodies just because their offensive line has been so tormented this season, but at the same time, I do think this is a team that it still values their offensive line. It still values their team, and I think in a lot of ways, it could really value that. Again, I go back to that the first guys, Zach Banner and Dante Smith, are the guys that I think most likely could make the roster. However, there is a 5th and final guy the Chiefs did try out. You actually may have heard his name because he was a 3rd-round draft pick, Nicholas Petit-Frere. He played at Ohio State before he was drafted by Tennessee. He started in 28 NFL games, appearing in 34, mostly at the right tackle position. Now, he is 6'5", 316, and he surrendered 87 pressures and 18 sacks during his 28 starts. However, he is only 26 and has way more NFL experience than the other 4 tackles combined. Now, Nicholas Petit-Frere is the guy that I wanted to save for last, specifically for that situation, because do I think Dante Smith and Zach Banner have really good shots, and are they the best out of the 4, let's say, non-NFL guys to actually make a splash and make the practice squad or roster? For sure. But in all reality, Nicholas Petit-Frere has the most experience. He's only 26 years old. He was a 3rd-round pick. Maybe the Chiefs are sitting here thinking, we can kind of get that back. Yeah, we can see what we can do with him. We can make that work. And so maybe that's what they're looking at with him. Either way, I am intrigued by a couple of these guys, specifically Joaquin Davis, Eric Ezukama, and Nicholas Petit-Frere. There is no word yet on how these tryouts officially went. We got some news and notes, but nothing really crazy. We'll kind of find out in the next couple of days if the Chiefs plan on signing any of these guys. Also, as I prefaced at the beginning of this show, this truly might be one of those things where Brett Veach is saying, okay, well, the playoffs are a long shot right now, or not a long shot, but not guaranteed, and in some ways look unlikely given the kind of collective group of AFC teams that are all sitting around the same record as the Chiefs. They do face the Texans and can effectively put it into their season if they do lose. But either way, this could be something they're like almost getting a head start on their off-season free agent list and trying to see who they would want to add to their 90-man roster. Obviously, because Kansas City is such a good spot for winning Super Bowls, being in the Super Bowl, being competitive, people want to play here, and these free agents who try out here want to play here so they can have their kind of first pick and basically get ahead of the scouting report of everybody else on the NFL. So those are the tryouts that we got to see for Kansas City. Again, we'll get you updated on whether or not any of those guys sign or kind of breaking down all of that, but it was an intriguing list for sure. We're going to take a break, tell you about our sponsor, DraftKings. We'll come back and we'll have more on the return of the Honey Badger, potentially. Missouri, your moment is finally here because DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is now live in your state. Now you can make every game even more exciting with same-game parlays, money lines, props, and more. All from your phone, all safe, secure, and easy to use. Missouri fans know game day, the tailgates, the noise, the passion. Now, with DraftKings Sportsbook, you can bring that same energy to every snap, every touchdown, every win. And right now, new Missouri customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. No waiting, no nonsense, just pure action powered by America's top-rated sportsbook app. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code 365Chiefs. New Missouri customers bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. That's code 365Chiefs. Crown is yours in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, 21 plus. Physically present in Missouri. Eligibility and restrictions apply. Terms at DraftKings.com/sportsbook. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see sportsbook.draftkings.com/promo. Like I said in the promo there, $5 can get you $300 of bonus bets instantly if you go and use code 365Chiefs. Go check it out. Again, DraftKings just opened up in Missouri, by the way, yesterday. So if you missed the action last night with the Patriots and the Giants, don't worry. Got a Thursday night football contest coming for you in just a couple days. Cowboys, Lions. Just saw the Cowboys. So you've got a good scouting report on them if you're in Missouri and a Chiefs fan. Again, $5 can get you $300 in bonus bets instantly using that code 365Chiefs. We've talked about the tryouts that the Chiefs have held, and kind of intriguingly enough, signings are a big theme of today's show because recently there was a little bit of a report about Tyrann Mathieu. Now, I'm going to go through the article here just to get the baseline down and make sure that this is all. Now, this is all coming from Patrick McAvoy of New Orleans Saints SI. He talked about the potential for Tyrann Mathieu to join back with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, where does this all stem from? Well, it stems from him joining the Up and Adams show and talking with Kay Adams. Now, what exactly he had to say was intriguing. Here is the official quote from Tyrann Mathieu on the show. Quote, "I'm not going to say no," Mathieu said when asked if he would return to the Chiefs. "I won't say no. I've stayed in contact with obviously Brett Veach, but mostly Coach Reed. His grandson actually plays on the football team with my son. It's all the family." It's very interesting to have that. And then it also kind of intriguingly goes on to another quote where it says, "It's the fact that you want to help your friends. You know what I mean? Question mark. You want your friends to have a fighting chance. I know fans hit me up all the time on Twitter or X. They want me to come back. Mostly, they want me to come back just to provide energy, that attitude. I think we're just missing some of that." Mathieu is an interesting case because he is right. At this point in his career, if he were to return to an NFL team, not saying the Chiefs, but anybody, the biggest thing that he would provide overall is energy. It's mantra, it's vibe. It's the way that he can kind of reignite a locker room. And while I do believe Kansas City does need a little bit of reigniting in their locker room, and I'm not going to put that on anybody blame, but it just unfortunately has been the way the season has gone. I think at this point, you're a little too far gone. You only got 6 games left. You're at best getting 11 wins on the season, which, reminder, last year it was 10 wins to get into the postseason. So the Chiefs, in theory, have to win 4 of their last 5 games, or rather 6 games. And in all reality, they can. They can. They really, really can. The same time, these last 5 games are going to be something to watch for with the Texans, obviously, the Chargers, and to some extent the Broncos. But you've won at home, and then playing the 2 away games with just the Titans and the Raiders, you got to feel confident in that light. Now, in terms of Tyrann Mathieu, first of all, he is a safety, which as of right now, all reports are that Brian Cook is good to go and should be back on the field for this Sunday's action against the Houston Texans. Again, we'll get the official injury report tomorrow. And as long as he's limited in the first practice of the week, I do think we're going to be in a good spot. But for looking at the stats here for Mathieu, the Honey Badger, he really only spent 3 seasons with Kansas City back in 2019, 2020, and 2021. The LSU product, obviously, in theory, could have just finished off his career in New Orleans with the Saints. But this is a guy who has posted year in and year out. The first 4 years of his career, it was a little bit rougher to play all the games. But again, he's young. He's a rookie moving on to kind of his first NFL contract where he played 13 games, 14 games, and then 10 games. But since 2017, he has played in 16 or 15 or 17 games in each of the last, what is that combined? 8 seasons now at this point. He is somebody you can trust. He is somebody you can rely upon. And I think the biggest maybe statement in all this is what Tyrann Mathieu sees for the rest of his career, because he hasn't played all season. There was rumors of him returning early on this season to potentially the New Orleans Saints, potentially be going on to any team that was safety needy at one point. A couple of different teams popped up, especially like names of the Dallas Cowboys popped up, but ultimately he never landed anywhere. He would have not played for a while, and I do think that he would have fun playing with Kansas City. And if the Chiefs ultimately did need him if Brian Cook were injured. I think he'd be a great signing. But does this mean that Tyrann is guaranteed to come over to Kansas City? Probably not. Does this mean that Mathieu is a guy you can look at and say, yeah, he can play a real good safety for us? I don't think that's ultimately the case. Now, does that take away the ability to sign him? No, because as I just said, the biggest thing that the Honey Badger brings to each and every team at this point in his career is vibes. It's getting a locker room set, getting a locker room ready. And funny enough, if he was able to join this week, which he probably won't even if he joined today, wouldn't be able to play in the game, but he was placing off against the Texans team, a team that he played with in 2018. But what's funny to me is I know Tyrann Mathieu played with the Cardinals, and that's obviously like a big part of his career. But maybe it's just because the bias of being a Chiefs fan, watching all the games with him in there. I just remember him being a Chief for his entire career and then going to the Saints in the final whatever years. Obviously, that's not what happened. Obviously, that's kind of an interesting way to look at it, but it does kind of spark the intriguing factor on that. And so, speaking of the Honey Badger and kind of rounding out the topic here, I am intrigued to see the way that the Chiefs handle their injuries this game because we've talked so much about must win and trying to do this or do that. This is about as close to this is a must-win game. Let's put it that way. This is a must-win game for them. You cannot lose to the Houston Texans when you still have the Chargers and the Broncos left. Luckily, you have a game against the Titans and the Raiders, and those are your only two away games left. But your Christmas game against the Broncos, your game coming up against Houston here on Sunday Night Football, and the ensuing game against the Los Angeles Chargers are all going to be some dogfights. And so, for that reason alone, you need help. And so, talking about the Honey Badger again, if they want to go out and sign a guy like him or a safety or just somebody to help fill out their role in some aspects instead of rushing someone back from injury, that probably could tell us a little bit more as to what the Chiefs are thinking, how they view the rest of this season as a whole, and in all reality, what they foresee being the end result of this year. Because if they go out and start signing people like this, and I love Tyrann Mathieu, don't get me wrong, but if they sign him, to me, that makes me believe the Chiefs gave up. The Chiefs said, well, it's not going to be over. And I don't think anything's going to happen until after the Houston Texans game because this win or loss really does change the trajectory of the season in a huge ways. Because you lose playoffs, basically an afterthought at this point. They're still possible, but they're very, very unlikely. Where if you win this game, your name's still in the pot. You can still go out there. You got to face off against the Chargers the next week. And every week is a must-win game, but it's still a possibility in theory. So I ultimately don't know what's going to happen. I did find it interesting that they tried out Sony Hill for their free agents. I do find it interesting that Mathieu is kind of this rumor is coming out now, but overall, it is so intriguing to me how all this came about in the first place. So either way, that's what we got for you here today on the Chiefs Report. Really interesting one today. Again, had what was it? Had 9 different players try out or 8 different players try out, 5 tackles and 3 wide receivers for the Kansas City Chiefs squad. We'll keep you updated if they sign any of those guys. Tomorrow we'll have the injury report out heading into the Texans game, so we'll get that as well up on here. So make sure you stay tuned, stay in line, and we will see you next time here on the Chiefs Report, part of the Rogue Sports Network. Once again, finally, use that code 365 Chiefs to get $5 turning into $300 of bonus bets instantly with DraftKings. Again, just appearing in Missouri, so all Missouri natives, get on that right away. We'll see you next time here on the Chiefs Report, everybody. Peace out.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.